Hi, friends. We are on Daniel, part 7. We have been studying the book of Daniel. Today, we are going to look at chapter 8, which is the second vision that Daniel receives from God. And it was telling for both the era and time that Daniel was living in, but it was also not just prophetic for what was going to happen with the kingdom of Babylon and those kingdoms thereafter, but also a future kingdom, the kingdom that will rise of the Antichrist and Satan. It was also prophetic for that as well. We're going to see this here today in Daniel chapter 8. So thanks for joining. If you've been following along with this series, then you know that there are 4 kingdoms that are spoken of concerning these visions and dreams that had occurred. The dream of Nebuchadnezzar that Daniel was able to interpret, and also the vision that Daniel had in the first year reign of Belshazzar, who was the son of Nebuchadnezzar. Now we see Daniel have this second vision. This is going to be, and this took place in the 3rd year reign of Belshazzar. Let's read here in Daniel chapter 8, beginning at verse 1. It says, "In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me." This is still under the Babylonian rule, remember, because Belshazzar was the son of Nebuchadnezzar, and Babylon was very huge and very mighty and a very powerful kingdom. We know that it was taken over by the Medes and the Persians. We see that actually in our part number 5 of Daniel. Look here in verse 1 again, where it says, "In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first." So he's likening it unto the first vision that he had had in the 1st year reign. So this is a couple of years later. It says, "And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace." So this also in your scripture, it might say Susa and Shushan are the same. That it's a capital of Persia. It says, "Which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last." Talking about a ram that has 2 horns. And so when the Medes and the Persians took over, the Persian Empire was larger than the Medes, and so that's why Daniel sees the horn that is larger, those representing the Medes and the Persians. Verse 4, "I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great." We know that the Medes and the Persians became great, but that this other kingdom rose up out of it. Verse 5, and took it over. And it says, and as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west." This is the one that comes and conquers the Medes and the Persians. We know that in history now, because Daniel wasn't able to know the names of everything and see everything, right? Always what we're able to see in prophecy is these prophecies have already been fulfilled. And so Alexander the Great rises to power, and 4 kingdoms come out of his kingdom. He comes in very swiftly. Remember that first vision that Daniel had seen. This is again speaking about Alexander the Great. When we hear this in verse 6, and it says, "And he came to the ram, and had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power, And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. We know that Alexander the Great, while he's in the middle of this great power, and he's young when he dies, and then his four of his generals end up taking over different portions of his kingdom. So it's broken down in 4 parts, and that's what is spoken of here. This was prophecy. Verse 9 says, and out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. This was the Christophus Epiphany the 4th, who this little horn at this time it's speaking about. But this is also what many scholars call the law of double reference. We're going to also see that this was also prophecy being spoken of the end times as well. But at this time, whenever these kingdoms are rising up, there's a little horn that comes up off of one of the 4 horns. It is a Syrian ruler, the Christophus Epiphany the 4th. He gives himself that name, and he treats himself as a god. He's very cruel and evil to the saints of God. We're going to see that spoken about here when it talks about the host and of the stars to the ground. It's talking about God's people and how he comes up against them. They said he would even hang babies, Jewish babies. He came specifically towards God's people. His vengeance was taken out on them, and it says, and it is said that he killed about 100,000 of them, which is so many for the time. And then if you also, this is before Christ. Still, this is fulfilled before Christ. So this little horn that rises up and slays many of the Jews, and also that he brings into their sanctuary, into their holy place, and he defiles it. He stands in it, calls himself, makes himself great, and calls himself mighty names. And then he also slays a pig in their sanctuary, which is under the Jewish law, under the law of Moses and the Levitical law that was given by God to his people. That was just desecrating it, and so he was doing this and not allowing them to offer up sacrifices to their God, the one true God. And he was also killing many of them, slaying many of them. And so this was a time where the Jews were under great oppression yet again. And it tells us in the word here in verse 12, we haven't got to that part yet, it says that this takes place by reason of transgression. It's because of the transgression of the Jews not keeping their covenant with God. And this was repetitive of them, and that they continually ended up in bad situations such as this and have. Look at verse 7. It says, and I saw him come close unto the ram. He was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and that was Alexander the Great, when he was strong, and the great horn was broken, for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. In verse 9, and out of one of them came forth the little horn. And that was the Syrian ruler that was so oppressive to the Jews. It says, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land, talking about the Holy Land, talking about Israel. Verse 10, and it waxed great to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them, talking about God's people. Verse 11, yea, he magnified himself, even to the prince of the host, And by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression. Telling us again what he had done, right? Even to that sanctuary, the holy place, and how he desecrated. And then it says the reason that this happened, and he took away the daily sacrifice, it was because of the transgression of the Jews, that why God allowed this, and which God had spoke to them from the beginning. And so it says, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. So he did prosper for a time. Verse 13, then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden underfoot? So during the vision, Daniel has this voice that calls out. It's a saint calls out and says, how long? Basically, how long is this going to happen? All right. And a voice responds and says in verse 14, and he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. And friends, it was, if you know history, which it's not included in the Jewish Bible or our Bible, because we don't believe that account to be recorded under inspiration of God, but it's Maccabees. It is recorded in other it is recorded in history. It's Judas Maccabees, but he came in with a revolt and came up against this Syrian ruler and overtook him, and so it was at the exact time. So now Daniel was given this vision prior to all of these things happening. He wasn't even alive when this was fulfilled. Although this was fulfilled before Christ came as a Messiah, and born of a virgin, and fulfilled all of the things that he was sent here to do as the Son of God, taking the sin upon the world, rising from the dead, all of the things that Jesus Christ fulfilled, so much prophecy. But this all took place this here before Jesus shows up. And think about Daniel. Seeing these things, but not being able to see them actually come to pass, and knowing exactly how all of this would transpire. You know, many liberal scholars have tried to discount that this was actually written by Daniel. They want to believe that it happened well after, because there is so much detail that is given of God is exact. God is exact, and this prophecy came to pass exactly as God had shown Daniel that it would. It's so interesting when you get into digging around, but think about, and so there is these, what Catholics put the Maccabees in their Bible, the first and second Maccabees, but we read them as history. We read them as history and not as divinely inspired words of God. But this account of Judas Maccabees, who went in and he led this revolt. These Jewish people were under great oppression, and God used him to lead that revolt. It's pretty interesting. Now, let's move on and see where it says beyond what Daniel just was sharing there. It says that it would last for 2,300 days. That's what had been told him in the vision. Now, verse 15, there's a shift that takes place here in the vision. And it says, and it came to pass when even I, Daniel. So we know that Daniel is writing about this account as well. It says, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning. Then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulai, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So Daniel wants to know what it means after he had seen it. And then he asked that it would be, he sought after the meaning. And a voice says, Gabriel, basically, go give him the understanding. And then there's a man standing before him that it looks like a man, but it's not. It's Gabriel. It's an angel, but Gabriel came in the form of a man to Daniel to give him the understanding. And we know also this is before Christ, right? So then Gabriel is the same angel that goes to Mary to let her know about the coming Messiah, goes to Zachariah, the father of John the Baptist. Gabriel does. And then Gabriel also goes to Joseph at this, all around the same time as Christ being born. But look, that it's Gabriel that God sends to give Daniel the understanding of the vision and for him to also write this account down. Now look what happens, verse 17. So he came near where I stood, and when he came, I was afraid and fell upon my face. So now Daniel has fallen to the ground, fell upon his face. But he said unto me, Understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision. So he's telling him this goes, this extends further than these 4 kingdoms that you were given of the first vision that he had received during the first year reign of Belshazzar. This is extending, and now it's given him a picture also of things that would happen at the end. And friends, we're not studying Revelation right now, but a lot of this aligns up with Revelation as well concerning the Antichrist, and that's what we're going to read about now. Now Gabriel has given him a deeper understanding about this little horn that rises up. Verse 18, it says, Now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground, but he touched me and set me upright. Consider the Apostle Paul, and remember how the Apostle Paul, he didn't know whether he was in the body or out of the body when he had his vision, right? And just consider that also when we're reading about this account that Daniel has. And so this angel stands him upright. In verse 19 now it says, And he said, Behold, I make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be. He's telling him this is also going to be what is going to happen at the end. Verse 20, The ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. Which, friends, we knew this because now it has actually already come to pass. Then at verse 21, And the rough goat is the king of Grecia. We know that is Alexander the Great. And you know, at the time that the Greeks were often referred to by the people of this area, there was a period of maybe a couple hundred years where they called them goats. They referred to the Greeks as goats. And that's interesting that God, when God gave him the vision, it was a goat. And verse 21 again, And the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. That is, the first king is Alexander the Great. Verse 22, Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. It will not be him, but there will be 4 kingdoms that arise after him, but under his kingdom. Under Greece, under the Greeks. In verse 23, And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. This fierce king speaking about the Antichrist at the end times, friends, and dark sentences, dark sayings. He's going to be a deceiver of many. Verse 24, And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. We know this, that he's going to have the power of Satan working right alongside him. He will be led by the enemy, Satan. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper in practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. We know that the saints will also be killed. Friends, during this 7-year tribulation and this rise of the Antichrist that happens within that time period, there are going to be saints on the earth. Remember, there's 144,000 that are going to be here reaching the lost people. Still, people will be able to come to know Christ during this time, and there will be saints here upon the earth. This is after the rapture. But there will be saints that are upon the earth, and he's going to rise up against them. He's to destroy them. Verse 25, That's what he's going to look to do, but there is going to be a remnant saved, Scripture says. Verse 25, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes. He's going to come against the people of the Lord, friends. He's going to come against specifically Christians, but he shall and followers of Jesus Christ, but he shall be broken without hand. You know what I'm saying? He's going to be taken down. It's not going to be by human hands. It's going to be by Jesus Christ himself who returns. Verse 26, and the vision of the evening and the morning, which was told is true. Wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. This was told to Daniel. Shut the vision up, but it shall be for many days. Verse 27, and I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. Afterward I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. Friends, he was able to eventually get back to his usual routine, Daniel was. But at this time when he was given this vision, physically, he was frail. It says he was sick, is what it records. That he even fainted. It was we don't understand everything that happened with Daniel. We can only read about how it's recorded. But it is interesting that Daniel physically was disturbed at this time. It was a very, very challenging physically for him, but that he does go back into a usual routine. We know in the opening it tells us that he was in the capital, but he was also in a very prominent location at the time in the capital. One of the what we would call like a fortress, and usually those were up like on a hill, even at the time. But the location is recorded for us. That Scripture records it for a reason. God lets us know where he was and in what city he was in. But then some of the details about how Daniel felt about it, what he saw, gives us the interpretation of the vision. But it lets us know that there were things that were coming at the end of time, at the end of days, concerning what Daniel had seen. And friends, how unique is it? Daniel didn't know John the Baptist. John the Baptist wasn't coming for many years. This happened so many years before John the Baptist. And think about how, when this happened, hundreds of years before John the Baptist ever came on scene, how John the Baptist would see so much similar things. His vision was different, his experience different than Daniel's, and different in some ways, but that it would line up with what Daniel recorded concerning the Antichrist that is yet to come, and that kingdom of Satan that will rise up. And friends, that will not happen until after the rapture, as the church is going to be raptured out of here, and then there's going to be that 7-year tribulation. There will be saints also that are sought after. That little horn again is going to, and we know that this also has come out of the Roman Empire. That was the empire that rose to power after the 4 kingdoms break down. We know, remember the original dream that Nebuchadnezzar had. It was gold, silver, brass, and iron. The iron represented Rome, and Rome was the ones who destroyed the second temple that had been built. The second temple is built and they destroy it. They also are the ones who crucified Jesus. They were the ones that took him in to be crucified. And so think about how interesting some of these things are, and we can, in studying Revelation, are given so much more. But how Daniel was given this and not able to see it all come to pass. But how amazing and unique would it be to have been given this revelation and given this through vision from God, even the messenger of God, Gabriel, given this message to Daniel to write. Now we have the account of it given to us in Scripture. It's just amazing. God is awesome and mighty and all powerful and all knowing. That is our God, friends. What a joy. Well, thank you for joining the Amazing Grace Bible study today. Lord willing, we'll be back tomorrow with a new teaching. God bless you.